Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Noxcast, your Equinox News Recap podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Hope. I'm the managing executive editor of the Equinox.
Now I'm Chloe Erno, the news editor.
And I just wanted to start off this installment with an announcement relating to next week's Noxcast, or rather lack thereof, because some members of the Equinox Z board, including myself, are going to be traveling to Washington, D.C. for our National Fall Media Convention. This is a conference that's a collaboration between the College Media Association and the Associated Collegiate Press. And this year, the Society for Professional Journalists is also working with them. So this is a pretty big deal for us. We know that for a fact that we're finalists for over 20 College Media Association awards, which is really exciting. It's across articles and photos and graphics as well, I believe. In addition to that, we'll also be attending some like educational workshops and stuff. It's a really exciting time for us at the Equinox. But we will be back after next week. So apologies for the disruption. We'll have a paper coming out in 2 weeks, but next week we also won't have a paper coming out. But stay tuned, and we'll get right back into the swing of things as soon as we can. And thank you for tuning into this episode. But with that, I would like to start off and get right into the proper recap here. Our top story news was about $1 million in TRIO funding being restored after a pause by the Trump administration, or rather his education department in particular. So this was sort of a story talking about how there was some holdups when it came to grants relating to the TRIO program, which Keene State does, have its own. It's a federally codified into law under Title IV, I believe, program. So colleges all have them, and so it was a potential that we would be impacted by this, and we talked a little bit about this in terms of our region and state top story in the previous weeks. But yeah, it's a really good piece talking about sort of an update into that situation, some partially good news and some more just uncertainty, and who knows if the full amount is going to be restored, I guess.
And it's crazy to see this happening in our government right now. I work down in student academic support, and I know a lot of the advisors personally. And it's just so disheartening to see these cuts and to see the government withholding funds from education departments because they're really just destroying our education system, is what they're doing. And destroying the Department of Education, destroying our schools. We talked about this in the editorial, but it's just creating a population of people who are uneducated and who can't question you. And I think that's very dangerous.
Yeah, definitely. And as you touched on, we did write our editorial about this topic as well, where we kind of sort of delved into why this is such an issue. I think in particular, we wanted to hit on the fact that it feels inevitable, or it felt inevitable, I guess, that the attacks on diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI would sort of lead to something like this, where as Adam Keith, the director of TRIO at Keene State, was sort of hinting at in some of his quotes in this article, that they're using, in some cases, AI software to sort of scan through different like federally funded programs and look for like potential DEI language. So like certain grants that mention the fact that these programs help underrepresented people or communities of color, for instance, those sort of automatically get flagged as being related to DEI, even though TRIO's sort of mission statement is mainly about like first generation students, low income students, stuff like that. So it's sort of disheartening to see, definitely. And I think what I also wanted to hit on in this editorial is that it seems kind of ironic, because it's like the conservative ideal almost of meritocracy, the idea that someone could go to college and have that level of social mobility where they can go from low income to high income just by virtue of the fact that they have the talent to do so and they have the knowledge and sort of motivation. A program like this, which is sort of a college readiness, and they're trying to make sure that people who don't come from backgrounds where it's easier to get ready for college, where they can be more adequately prepared and then start off on a level playing field with others. It kind of feels like anti-meritocracy almost, to just not afford students that opportunity to just get on the same playing field as other students who start off if they're from a family where their parents graduated college or their grandparents and they already sort of know what to expect, or they come from a more financially advantageous background, it's sort of like, you know, disadvantaging them and not allowing them the opportunity in some cases, and also potentially just discouraging a lot of people from going to college, particularly people who might have otherwise excelled and succeeded massively, and then just making it so they don't feel like that's an opportunity for them. So that's sort of a big point I wanted to hit on, the sort of the hypocrisy there.
And we were discussing this, but a lot of Keene's campus is first gen students. A lot of us on the e board are first gen students. I myself, neither of my parents graduated college, and I'd be the first one in my dad's entire side of the family to graduate college after I graduate from my 4 year tenure here. And it's so disheartening. And I think it just doesn't benefit anyone except the people in the higher ups who have all the power over us, and they're just trying to take everything away from us. They want people to be uneducated. They want people to not have the funds and to not have the resources that they need to thrive. They're taking away DEI, they're taking away TRIO, and you're destroying the Department of Education. And once you get rid of all that, what's even going to be left, really, for our colleges and our schools? It's just all going to be gone.
Yeah, well said, definitely. But I commend Sam Menard, our staffer, for getting that reporting and a lot of good quotes from the director of Trio, Adam Key. So I encourage you to go check that out when you get the chance. With that, though, now that we've covered both sort of news and opinions, we're going to go into Region State. This week, our top story in Region State was a piece from NHPR's Josh Rogers. This was about how the government shutdown will impact New Hampshire. It's another one of those good stories that's localizing a federal issue sort of just to our state. There were some key bullet points that appeared at the start of this article that I thought were interesting, sort of summarizing what people should expect. And then so I'd like to go over those just so you know, as a viewer, what's going on with that. So Governor Kelly Ayotte said that state operations can continue for at least 30 days. Ideally, the government shutdown would end before then, because after that 30 days, things kind of get into more uncertainty and sort of more extraordinary measures are going to have to be taken. And so, in addition to that, there's food assistant benefits. Those are scheduled through October, but a long shutdown could sort of affect all future benefits. A lot of this sort of just depends on how long this shutdown goes until. Federal heating aid should continue until December, so that's a little bit longer of a timeline. And the White Mountain National Forest will remain open, but some have said that earlier staff cuts preceding the shutdown could have an impact on some of the activities over there. But yeah, that's basically a lot of the key points there. There's also a question of how many federal workers in New Hampshire could potentially get furloughed or laid off due to this shutdown, which started at the start of the month. So now, as of recording this, we're on like day 8 of the shutdown. There's not really a concrete end in sight necessarily at the moment. A lot of this shutdown fight has been about subsidies related to the Affordable Care Act. So those who have healthcare plans through the ACA, they get subsidized like premiums, and so they don't have to pay as much for certain aspects of their healthcare. Those subsidies expire somewhat soon, I believe. So once those expire, premiums are going to jump for not just them, but also for non-ACA recipients. So that's sort of the context for that. But yeah, in terms of New Hampshire, obviously we'll have some assistance and some stuff going on just statewide where we can make sure that programs are still running, but it gets to a point after a while where losing that federal assistance will have some big impacts.
And I, of course, hope that this ends very soon. I was talking with my professors about it, and it's been a while since we've seen a shutdown of this degree happen. And I just hope that it ends so that people who actually rely on things from the government aren't in danger of losing those. And I've seen it even myself on trying to work on group projects, and I tried to access census information about the states, and the website's completely shut down due to the shutdown, and I can't even access that data for like a group project. It's crazy. Um, I just hope that it ends. It's another crazy thing going on in our government, and it's just a lot right now for everyone to deal with.
Yeah, I mean it's sort of not lost on me the fact that like the with our DC convention coming up that it's like we kind of just have to prepare for the fact that basically all the public museums and stuff are gonna potentially not be open for us to go to. So we're already sort of preparing for that, looking at other options of potentially like private museums in the area. But obviously that's just one aspect of that, and we sort of knew from the outset when Trump took office, and we already knew the convention was going to be in DC that there would probably be some issue. But that's just our side of things. But in general, there's a lot to be concerned about in terms of just Trump also having floated in the past, sort of maybe wanting to like maximize the effects of the shutdown so that it would push Democrats to sort of fall in line with the Republican spending plan. And it's sort of just disappointing, I guess, to see Congress not um, work to just do the very basic duty of just keeping the government open and funded. That's like the one thing they absolutely have to do continuously. And the fact that there's a shutdown, it's the first one since 2018, I believe. And so I don't know. I mean, I don't really know what's gonna happen. Like Chloe said, I'm hopeful that there will be some agreement before things start getting really hard for all the states, not just us. But um, who knows? I guess keep up with our reporting about all that stuff. Keep up with like NHPR's reporting and any other state outlet because it's something that we're also going to follow and look at to see if there's any potential impacts there. But yeah, I would like to move in now to more positive news, I guess. Going into the student life top story, this was a piece by our staffer Dakota, and this was a profile on Sammy Goldblatt, who's a junior Holocaust and Genocide Studies psychology double major, and she is the president of the Make-A-Wish Club. She helped sort of restart the Jewish Student Union. She's an orientation leader. She wears a lot of hats, basically, so it's another one of those profiles where we like to sort of talk to someone and sort of highlight someone that has so many different roles on campus and has so much impact. I thought it was really sort of touching to see how her fellow e-board member at the Make-A-Wish Club, Logan Gillette, was talking about how she's, describing her in one word, said chaotic, but in sort of a good way, being that like calm through the storm and always seeming like on top of everything, even though, having a stake in so many different things. So I really thought it was, just a great, nice little profile to do on someone who, everyone must have seen around campus at least once or twice at this point due to just how many different areas that they occupy.
Yeah, and as of the time of filming this, we have the Make a Wish event on campus this weekend. And as a bit of a personal anecdote, I think her work is very important. One of my close friends back home in Connecticut had cancer our junior year of high school, bone cancer. So I think it's just terrific to see a student running a club like that and advocating for things like that. And I think it's also incredible to see her work in different areas, Jewish Student Union, and just, I think, advocating for the right things and to helping people.
Yeah, definitely. And I just appreciate it a lot, especially just because, Make a Wish is also a relatively new club on campus. They just sort of started back up, I believe, like during the time that I've been here. So at least like maybe like a couple of years ago that they really started getting things going. And their sort of goal just in helping the national organization and like the statewide chapter be able to just assist them in what they need and do some community service work, which I think is really valuable, definitely. But with that, I would like to go into our top story for arts and entertainment, which was a piece by our senior reporter, Ryan Pacheco, who also took some great photos for this. But it's about the Perch opening in downtown Keene. This is a sort of combination restaurant. They serve burritos, they also serve beer, and sort of are like a mix of those two things mainly. There's other stuff on their menu as well, but sort of a place where you can go get food or you can go drink if you're of age. But there's also an element of music too, where they have already had actually a student band, or rather a band with students and alumni perform there. The band is called the Swordfish. And the co-owner of the Perch is actually previously the manager of Panucci's, which was a bar in downtown, pretty prominent until its closure over the summer. So this was a nice little piece highlighting, and this is another example of something where we were gonna hold off on doing an article about this, but there was another story that fell through, and so props to Ryan for being able to pick this up and sort of turn that around real quick. And there's also good comments just from a couple students in this article talking about sort of how it's nice to see some new things because there's also unfortunately some local closures as well. So sort of balancing out the good with the bad.
And I think it's almost impossible to not have noticed the building walking downtown. I know my friends and I, we saw the building when it was under work and there was a banner out front. And we were just wondering, like, what's that going to be? Like, what food are they going to have? Like, what kind of restaurant is that? And so I think covering that is just kind of covering students' curiosity because you're going to notice that going on downtown. And I think it's another way for students to get out there and to engage in their local community. And it's also nice to just support another restaurant that isn't a chain around here. But I think it's a very nice thing to cover.
Yeah, that's true. We've had an editorial before where we talked about the lack of sort of not only just like diverse cuisine, but also just more like locally owned businesses. And so it's nice to see, sort of being able to contribute money back into the local economy rather to, these big corporations, especially because sometimes those are the most accessible, unfortunately, to those who just live on campus and don't have a car. So it's a nice little spot. And I also appreciate sort of leaning into like the more, college audience as well with the whole branding of the Perch, of course, and owls and things like that. I feel like a lot of downtown businesses don't take advantage of that enough, in my opinion. But yeah, nice little spot to go check out. And we'll keep an eye to see if there'll be any other student bands or performances there where we can cover some stuff over there as well. But with that, I would like to get into our sports top story, which is about the cross country invitational that took place recently. So this was the previous weekend to now, which is, as of recording this, is Thursday, October 9th. So this was this past weekend. Our cross country team hosted its only home invitational of the season. We don't do much at home with our cross country teams because of sort of the lack of a dedicated facility, but this is the time where we do. So there's 30 different teams at Keene, and we had pretty decent results, I think. There was junior Tyler Belaski, who finished fifth place just on an individual level. Junior Griffin Ernizis at 35th place. Sophomores Nicholas Terranova at 47th, and sophomore Ben Tutu finishing at 64th, all those individually. And then the team overall with 202 points and a fifth place finish out of 30 teams. It's not too bad. And I know there's some home field advantage, I guess, to that, but also it's just nice to see our teams doing well. We have someone on our e-board who's also on that team, so she had mentioned the fact that that was coming up and invited us to go check it out. But I really appreciate this article as well because it's from our staffer Nathan, who's been writing for sports for a little bit, and he got some nice little quotes from the people there. I always appreciate when folks sort of go to the places where they're doing their like recaps. This is kind of like a recap, but not like in a traditional way because cross country is such like a more involved in like different sport in some ways. But getting those quotes from the actual event itself and actually going there, and then also some really good photos as well from our staffer Alex. So great stuff all around.
And I think it's so nice to just see this ongoing list of how great our sports teams are doing this season because they really are just killing it. And it's really happy to see. And we, of course, know Elena, and it's awesome to see us rank so highly out of 30 different schools and have all those teams there here on Keene's campus. And I think it also raises the possibility of maybe like expanding our facilities here for track in the future, which might be great. But yeah, I'm very proud of us and I'm very proud of our team for how well they scored.
Yeah, just doing so well almost it feels like in spite of that, but also I was the one of the co-authors on the piece where we talked about the lack of a dedicated facility and sort of it was almost surprising talking to the amount of people that former managing executive editor Tim Bruns and I talked to, and we consistently saw sort of that, you know, people saying that, you know, while it is somewhat disappointing, and, you know, it would be nice to have those facilities, you know, despite that, our teams, you know, cross country and track and field teams, they perform consistently so well, even compared to a lot of teams that have really nice facilities. So there's not really that correlation there, which I think is sort of like a testament to just how good they've been doing. But yeah, I'm really proud of all of our student athletes here, and look forward to more accomplishments. I know that their season's going to wrap up in like a month or so, so we still got a few more things to cover from them. But yeah, that just about does it for our recap for this week. As always, I would like to extend a special shout out to our very own Equinox alum, Zach Keenan, for composing the music for Noxcast. And I'd also like to thank Elijah Fisher, our art director, for making the graphic for Noxcast. And then finally, the editor of Noxcast, Charlotte King, for now, for just making this thing happen every week. We couldn't have done it without all of you, so be sure to stay tuned a couple weeks from now when we return. Until next time, I've been Nathan Hope. Thanks for watching.